Hello, my friends. Welcome to Trending. Today is the first episode of 2023. So
Happy New Year,
Happy
man.
New Year.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Today's January 5th. It's about 9:30. And, man, I don't know what your life is like. Joe, we were talking. There's just a lot going on in church land.
Yes.
I'm in my fancy adult clothes today because, unfortunately, we have a funeral, unfortunately. But there's just a lot going on around here.
Yes.
I feel like the new year has come ready to roll.
Yes. Yeah, like no rest for the weary, man. Like we got this little break, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, friend.
Yes.
Here's all this stuff.
Remember reality? Here it is. So
yes.
Okay, so since we took a few weeks off from our normal little shtick. We did the Santa, we did the favorite things, the predictions.
Nostradamus, yes.
So now we're kind of back to what our normal thing is. So if you're relatively new joining us, what we do most weeks is we take the top handful of stories in the news on Twitter or on Google, and we do our best to kind of talk about them from a faith perspective, throw it in there wherever we can. So we're doing pretty much a normal thing, but I guess it's slightly different from normal, Joe.
Right.
So I've got 5 or 6 so we're only 5 days in, right? This is still a new year.
That's right.
But I wanted to run through a handful of stories that I'm kind of following.
Okay.
We can talk about them a little bit. They've kind of got a common theme. So
Okay,
we're 5 days in. So far, here's how this year is going.
Okay.
So a lot of people are probably following the Damar Hamlin story.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the Bills-Bengals game live when it happened. Crazy just to see what appeared to not be that bad of a hit, but there's all this stuff coming out. Nothing's really sure yet, but most likely he had some kind of heart condition that led to the really scary thing on the field. So got Damar Hamlin and all the fallout from there. Okay. So we'll put a little pin. We'll come back to that.
All right.
Same day, Jeremy Renner, one of my favorite actors. He's in Avengers. He was in Bourne. He was in Mission Impossible. Kind of top of the world guy. Had kind of a freak snowplow accident in ICU, and he's had to have a couple surgeries. And I think he's doing fine. I think he's going to be okay. But kind of a scary thing. I saw clips of him being airlifted to a hospital. So kind of crazy thing. You probably pay attention to this more than I do, but there's all the Kevin McCarthy stuff in the House. Yeah. There's, I think 6 votes so far, and they haven't been able to get him or anybody else approved to be the new Speaker of the House. Sounds some chaos in politics. We're not really sure where all that's going to go. And then today there's news that Bed Bath & Beyond is not doing so great. Like there's some rumors they might be looking at bankruptcy.
Wow.
Amazon said they're going to have to let go 18,000 people.
Wow.
So the economy is obviously still pretty in a lot of turmoil. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about, Joe.
All right. All that.
We're 5 days in.
Yeah.
I think when we get to New Year's, like I'm not really a New Year's resolution guy. Are you a resolutions guy?
Yeah, I like to try to set some sort of a course.
Whether you are or aren't, I think all of us at least have this sense of, okay, blank slate, fresh start. Let's forget last year. Let's kind of start fresh with the new year. And man, at least for me, when I run through the biggest stories, it's like, man, this all happened in 5 days.
Yeah.
A lot of, not great things. There's always good too. I'm not trying to focus just on the bad things, but and I guess we're 5 days in now. People might, if they had some kind of resolutions, it's probably starting to get a little bit harder, right? The first couple of days, you're kind of energized. Maybe you're still in that vibe of, I can do the no sugar thing, or I can lift weights, or whatever people are doing, right?
Right.
But man, I think I'm just hit with the reality of, I think a lot of people had this hope and this optimism, and bam, a lot of things are happening already. So, first of all, do you want to comment on any of the news things? And have you thought that this first week, what has been going through your mind?
Well, there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware of Amazon laying off workers. Bed Bath & Beyond, that's a surprise. All those coupons.
Right. Maybe possibly too many coupons, maybe.
That's right. The printing budget's blowing their resource budget. So, but aware of course, the sports story, the Jeremy Renner thing, but this thing with the House of Representatives and Kevin McCarthy and all the turmoil there. So it does seem like there's plenty of things to just be nervous about.
Yeah.
And so where does your faith come in? How do you manage this type of stuff?
Yeah.
Is probably at the top of mind of some folks because, you're right. We're managing personal things. There's also these common things that a lot of people are talking about. Mm-hmm. Probably things outside of our control.
Yeah.
We could be tempted to not really pay no mind to those things, and it might be good for us. But still, this Damar Hamlin thing, it's just you could put a lot of people in your life into his shoes. He's in his mid-20s. Many of us know people in their mid-20s.
Yep.
Doing stuff that he loves. Future ahead of him looks bright. Mm-hmm. And then something that seems quite common derailing his life a little bit. So I think that's harder to like just put to this side. And we just got a lot of sports fans and a lot of people who play sports are like rattled by this. They're shook by this. They can't do business as usual. And obviously like kind of puts the spotlight on the NFL because this is not the first time that injuries have come front and center to the future of their enterprise. They haven't really dealt with traumatic things well in the past, as documented, the CTE and concussion protocol things. This is obviously a different injury, but it just puts like front and center once again. What will they do? Will they actually take care of the real lives of their workforce, where they keep on moving because there's millions and billions to be made? As that was rolling out, Pastor Andy and I were talking about a wonderful talk that Malcolm Gladwell gave, sneaky speaking truth to power talk at the University of Pennsylvania, where he spun this long yarn about coal mining industry, how all of these statistics came out about how hazardous it was for a workforce. And everybody knew, but they just kind of kept plunging forward. And why would we do this? And then as he's got like the whole crowd eating out of his hands, he's like, well, you've done the very thing. Like, football is the same. We could put it like parallel with the coal mining industry. And the question for us is, are we going to do anything about it, right? And so I think that's a big thing for us who are sports fans are going to deal with. We're just going to have to watch and see what's going to happen to the sport. So, a lot of things to go on. So, like, I think at times when I'm in pastoral moments, when I've been in them, like, seeking wisdom from somebody else or people come seeking wisdom from me, I think sometimes we have this thinking that we've got like these tough seasons and that they come and go, and then we've got this like calm season. And then we have a tough season again. I remember something that Rick Warren said. I mean, Rick Warren, pastor of one of the largest churches in America, retired recently. He says like you shouldn't see it like that, where these seasons kind of come in like tandem or one after another in sequence. But they're actually going all the time. He's like, think of it like two train tracks, and you've got like a vantage point, and one track is closer to you, and one goes to the other side, and then there's a twist and a turn to where like the good times are more clear than like the challenging times, and then that's just like the good times are still coming, but maybe the challenging times are a little more front of mind. And I think we may be one of these seasons collectively where it's just like it's just tougher for a lot more people, but that's not to negate the good things that are happening as well. And so I just remember, like on Instagram, you get like those inspirational quotes. I hold on to one like the only thing that we're 100% at so far is getting through tough days. Like I'm not 100% anything else. But like I had a tough day, I got through it, and I kept moving. And all of us that way, right? And so I just think that we have to try to find a way to say, okay, like we do have to make some seismic decisions personally. We should probably give ourselves the grace to let some of these things that are out of our control go. But the things we can't, like say, okay, I need to learn something in the midst of this. However, at the end of the day, I've gotten through all my tough days previous to this point. There's a good chance I'm going to get through this one as well. And have that be something that, I don't know, it's like a buoy for us in a kind of unprecedented moment. So,
I want to be careful how I say this, but I was listening to a podcast when they were talking about some of the similar stuff, like the economy, the recession stuff, and then some of the politics stuff. And they're saying, it's, the economy stuff's real, politics stuff, it is a mess. But he said, like that's true, and also like my life hasn't really changed that much. You know what I mean? Like inflation, you're probably feeling inflation at the grocery store or wherever. Like it's real, but like at least we and hopefully a lot of people watching are blessed enough we haven't lost our jobs. I'm not at the point where I can't pay any bills yet. You know what I mean? So it's real and I feel it, but also like my day-to-day life isn't that different. And I think sometimes when there's all these headlines, the headlines pile up and we start to feel heavier than we might actually be.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's part of the danger of the news cycle is we hear all this bad news and it just stacks. And we feel like we're maybe more weighed down than we actually are. You know what I mean? Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think this is the shadow side of being an empath or stressing empathy. That's one of the core values of Christianity, I would imagine. People would agree. We serve and follow a compassionate, gracious God. And if we're becoming like that God, then our compassion quotient should be growing.
High,
Now,
right.
maybe it's like one step forward, one step back at times.
Yeah.
But like from beginning to end of our Christian experience, we should be growing. This is one of the shadows of empathy. It's like it's really is hard to turn off.
Yeah.
And so like when a college football coach passes away, empaths can't help but feel for the players and for their family, and they can't move past it. Maybe like someone who has like a lower empathy score does, right? And so we have to have a spirituality where we don't lose the empathy in this one, because it's going to be important. It's always important.
Yeah.
But however, like find a way to give ourselves grace to let things go and to give it to God to manage. One of my favorite Luther quotes, at least it's attributed to Luther. I mean, Luther was such a towering figure in church history. He's kind of like Twain, like pithy statements are like attributed to him, even though he probably never said them, right?
Or Lincoln, right? Everything. Lincoln said everything.
That's right. Yeah, the internet's woke.
Yes,
said Abraham Lincoln, right? But I think it was Luther said like to pray and let God worry, which I think is an interesting little turn of phrase. We've been told to pray about things that we worry about.
Yeah.
Assuming that we're still going to be worrying about them.
Yeah.
But praying about them kind of softens them. Luther, who he believed in the sovereignty of God, he doesn't believe that God worries. But this is a neat little pastoral quote, which is saying, hey, like God is so attentive to our prayers, and prayer is so real that we can pray and let God worry.
Yeah.
Allow God's sovereignty, God's power, God is able to do things, work in the background. And prayer is not just a way to get things done, but it's also a way to help shoulder the burdens that we so easily carry.
Yeah.
The scripture says in the Psalms, and then Peter picks it up in 1 Peter, cast your cares upon him because he cares for us. Psalm says, promise, he'll never let the righteous fall.
Yeah.
So there is this hope and assurance that we have as believers, like we can cast our cares to him, and God will manage it with us as the benevolent and present God that he is. At least that the scripture, portrays him as. And so, I just love that quote from Luther. Pray and let God worry. And then keep on working towards the things that we know that we can do. Take those matters in our hands that we can manage. Use our logic, use wisdom, use the wisdom of community as we like have people help sort our lives out with us. And then when still we have moments where we feel faint, pray and let God worry. And then keep moving.
That's good. Yeah. One kind of last thing as we start to wrap up here. So we had a staff meeting on Tuesday where Brent mentioned this, and I kind of want to get your take on it real quick.
Sure.
So Brent mentioned there's a verse, 1 Samuel 30, verse 6, where it says, David found strength in the Lord. David was running from enemies. His life was way harder than ours. And he was distressed, and it said that he found strength in the Lord. And Brent mentioned in our staff meeting that like that sounds really good. David found strength in the Lord. And that's one of those verses where like, it sounds good, we want that, but I don't really understand what that means. It doesn't really clarify how did David get strength from the Lord? How can we do that? Like what does it actually mean? So I guess you've kind of talked about that a little bit already. But when you find strength in the Lord, maybe if people are kind of feeling heavy by some of this stuff, what does finding strength in the Lord look like to you?
Wow. So I think there's a practice worth doing in the morning and in the evening that somebody gave me along the way that I think helps with this, because I think one of the ways in which we get strength from the Lord is just to recognize where God is in the common. Philippians 2 says that Jesus emptied himself of advantages and took the form of a servant, being found in the image of a human, right? So there's like, in a theological language, it's the word kenosis, which means to like empty. And so because of that, we can encounter God in the most common of things, not just like in holy hours and holy places, but in all places, and even common hours and common places, right? I think that's one of the contours of Christian discipleship. It's not having two selves, like a religious self and then like everyday, other day self, but it's the holy and the common blend together now. And that the incarnation gives us the rubric for that. So I think one of the things that I've been trained to do, and I think I've had a lot of benefit from it, is like you look at your daily schedule and you already thank God for 3 things that you're going to do today. So like and write it down, and like really like meditate on it, like how wonderful it's going to be. So you're already anticipating hope in your day. So like I looked at trending every Thursday morning. I could sit here with Matt. We could talk about trending topics. We laugh together, and we just enjoy doing this together. Like this is probably the lightest thing that we're gonna do on our task list today, right? And so I was thanking God for that. I get to go to Ziggy's Pizza for lunch today with a ministry partner, and they have great like taco pizza. Like it's like got Doritos on it and stuff. Like.
Dude, Ziggy's is great.
I know. So like I'm like, wow, I can already taste it. Like, and so all of a sudden, like my vibe, or if I could just use maybe a new age term, like went from here to here because I'm already anticipating. Like we have 2 hours of hockey tonight. Both my kids, 2 hours of hockey. I get to be on the ice with them. I mean, what's better than that? I mean, so I've got my day's already brimming with potential. So that's what you do in the morning. You say, okay, yes, there's chaotic things happening out there, things that I control, things that cannot. But these 3 things I'm already up for.
Yeah.
Like the day's already buzzing because of that, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what we do as Skillins in our closing prayer time, we say, what was your favorite moment from the day? Like, and what's neat is that everybody chimes in, and then you get to reflect on how like your day was just brimming with so much goodness.
Yeah.
And therefore you can go to bed and you could be into the rest of God because there was a lot of uncertainties. There was things I planned to do today, some things that caught me off guard.
Yeah.
But I got to the end, and my last thoughts are thoughts of blessing and hope and gratitude.
Yeah.
Right? Like those things can anchor the soul, particularly in uncertain times like these.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Probably out of all these stories, probably the one I'm following the most is the Hamlin story, the NFL story. And one thing I was thinking this week was, I think we talked about this before, but I think there's this quote that's, again, it's been attributed to Mr. Rogers. Whenever there's bad news, look for the heroes, right? So don't focus on what's the horrible things. Look for the heroes. Look for the helpers. I think it's helpers. Look for the helpers.
Yeah.
And one thing I was struck with watching the NFL game, the Bengals and Bills players, all the coaches, all the refs, all the TV reporters, like they were all united caring for this 20 whatever year old kid who had this horrible accident. And the Bengals are fighting for the playoff spot, right? They want to win this game. But at least what's coming out of the news is that the Bengals players equally wanted to make sure he was okay before they played another snap of football.
Yeah.
So again, and those players, probably a lot of them don't necessarily claim faith necessarily, but just that common courtesy, that common care, the kindness, like that is also happening in the news too. Like there's all this bad stuff, but there are good people. I think people have this desire to come together. People want to be good people for the most part. So I think that's also just look for the heroes, look for the helpers in the midst of the craziness. There's a lot of good going on too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good word. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going long. Anything else you want to say? You're preaching on Sunday.
Yeah, we're just continuing on a series in Psalms. So in 2023, we're going to cover 22 Psalms and like some of the other Psalms connected to them. There's 150 of them, so we're not going to do like a 150-week sermon series.
Yeah.
We're going to come and go from Psalms. So Brent started with Psalm 1. I do Psalm 2. We're not going to go in order like that, but it just seemed to be fitting because those two seem to be together. And so I can't wait to share. We're going to have communion, which I think is a great practice. We do it once a month here, but man, every time it needs to be fresh. And so we're going to have a fresh opportunity to come together and share the meal and meditate on our forgiveness. And so, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Good. Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody watching today. We hope to see you on Sunday, whether you come in person or watch online. Love to have you, and we'll be back next week. So
see you next time.
Have a good week. See you guys.